Imagine a small, frightened girl running through the street, tears streaming down her cheeks, shouting for help. "They're beating my mama." In that instant, every instinct in us screams, "Do something." Now, imagine a group of strangers, bikers, stepping in not for themselves, but for justice, kindness, for humanity. What happened next will restore your faith in people. There is a unique power in innocence, a kind of truth that cuts through pretension and forces the world to pay attention. When a child cries out in fear, it is raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. In this story, a little girl ran through the streets, tears streaming down her cheeks, shouting, "They're beating my mama." Her voice was small, yet it carried a weight that many adults fail to recognize. The urgent, desperate plea for help that only comes from someone who trusts in the goodness of others. Children have an instinctive understanding that when the world is in chaos, someone must intervene, and they often turn to strangers with the purest hope that humanity will answer. What makes innocence so powerful is that it exposes the truth of a situation in its most unguarded form. Adults may hesitate, rationalize, or make excuses, but a child's cry is undeniable. In that moment, the little girl was more than frightened. She became a messenger of urgency. Her fear forced the world around her to stop and confront a moment of injustice. Innocence has a way of breaking through barriers because it appeals to something deep within us, the natural impulse to protect, to nurture, and to act. Moreover, innocence awakens courage in others. The bikers in this story may have been strangers to the child, yet the intensity of her cry compelled them to act. There was no hesitation, no calculation of risk. The innocence of her plea demanded a response. Children often inspire adults to rise to their better selves, reminding them that empathy and compassion are not optional but necessary. Her vulnerability highlighted the moral choice, to stand by or to intervene. This moment also reminds us that courage is not always loud or grand. It often begins with recognition. By acknowledging the child's fear and responding to it, the bikers demonstrated that true bravery often stems from listening to the innocent voices that others might overlook. The little girl, in her sheer vulnerability, became a catalyst for action. Finally, innocence teaches us about trust, the kind of trust that expects the world to respond with good even when danger is present. The girl trusted that someone would see her mother's suffering and act, and in doing so, she reminded all of us that there is moral clarity in simplicity. Her innocent cry transcended age, background, and circumstance, proving that sometimes the smallest voices can create the largest impact. In moments of crisis, the true strength of a community is revealed, not through buildings or institutions, but through the actions of the people within it. The story of the little girl running to the bikers highlights a profound lesson. A community is not defined by proximity alone. It is defined by the willingness of its members to stand up for one another when it matters most. In that split second, the bikers transformed from mere passers-by into pillars of protection, embodying the essence of what it means to be part of a caring society. Too often, society underestimates the power of collective responsibility. Many walk past suffering, assuming someone else will act, or convincing themselves that intervention is dangerous or complicated. Yet in this story, the bikers exemplify a different truth. Real community is forged when individuals refuse to look away. They did not wait for law enforcement or external authority. They became the authority themselves, guided by a moral compass that values human life and dignity above all else. This is the heart of community in action. Ordinary people stepping into extraordinary roles when the situation demands it. Communities thrive when people recognize that everyone has a part to play in protecting and uplifting others. It is not always about grand gestures or heroic feats. Sometimes the impact of simply showing up is enough to change the trajectory of a life. By stopping to help the little girl and her mother, the bikers demonstrated that courage and empathy are contagious. Their actions sent a ripple through the neighborhood, a signal that someone cares, someone is watching, and someone will act when injustice arises. Furthermore, this story challenges stereotypes about who can be part of a community of care. Bikers, often misunderstood and stereotyped as rough or self-centered, shattered expectations. They showed that compassion is not limited to certain appearances, professions, or social groups. True community transcends labels. It emerges whenever individuals choose to protect and defend the vulnerable. Community in action also teaches us about responsibility. Each member of society carries the potential to influence positive outcomes. When one person acts, others are inspired to follow. The bikers' intervention was a living example of this principle. Their courage inspired onlookers, reinforced moral standards, and reminded everyone present that standing together against wrongdoing is not optional, it is necessary. Ultimately, moments like these reveal the unseen threads that hold communities together. They remind us that a neighborhood, city, or society becomes stronger when people are willing to act, not just for themselves, but for others. The little girl's cry did more than summon help. It awakened a community's conscience and showed that when people step up, even strangers can create safety, hope, and lasting impact. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they ride motorcycles, carry tattoos, and are underestimated by society. Yet they can change lives in a single moment. The story of the little girl running to the bikers reveals a truth we often forget. Heroism is not defined by status, appearance, or background, but by the choices we make in moments that matter. In this case, the bikers were strangers, outsiders in the child's world, but their willingness to act transformed them into unexpected heroes, illustrating that courage can emerge from the most surprising places. Society often labels people, assuming their role in emergencies or moral responsibility. Bikers, in particular, are frequently misunderstood, stereotyped as reckless or self-interested. Yet in this moment, they defied those assumptions entirely. Their actions demonstrated that heroism doesn't require recognition or expectation. It only requires empathy, awareness, and the willingness to step in when someone is in danger. The little girl, unaware of societal labels, instinctively ran to them for help, and the bikers responded. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the heroes we need are not who we expect, but those who choose to rise above convention when it matters most. Unexpected heroes also teach us about moral courage. They act not because they are obligated or because it's convenient, but because they recognize a fundamental truth. Doing nothing in the face of injustice is a choice, too. By intervening, the bikers made a conscious decision to uphold what is right, regardless of personal risk or societal perception. They showed that heroism is not about seeking accolades. It's about answering the call to protect and defend when someone cannot do so for themselves. Moreover, the idea of unexpected heroes inspires hope. In a world often dominated by news of tragedy or neglect, stories like these remind us that there are people ready to step up in ways we might not anticipate. Ordinary individuals can perform extraordinary acts simply by choosing to act with humanity. The bikers' intervention was more than just stopping violence. It was a message to the community and the world that courage exists in all forms and in all people. Finally, these unexpected heroes remind us to look beyond appearances and prejudices. They challenge us to rethink our assumptions about who is capable of goodness. In a single moment, they proved that heroism can emerge from anywhere, often when it is needed the most. The little girl's life and the lives of those around her were forever changed, not because of fame, wealth, or authority, but because a group of strangers saw injustice and refused to turn away. Fear is a universal emotion, one that grips us in moments of danger, uncertainty, or helplessness. In the story of the little girl and her mother, fear was palpable. Running through the street, crying for help, the girl's trembling voice reflected both terror and urgency. Yet fear, powerful as it is, often sets the stage for courage to emerge. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Rather, it is the ability to act in spite of it. The biker's response illustrates this principle perfectly. Despite any personal danger or uncertainty, they confronted the situation head-on, choosing action over inaction, bravery over hesitation. Courage and fear are intertwined. In that moment, the mother faced the terrifying reality of being harmed. The little girl confronted the overwhelming vulnerability of witnessing her parent in danger, and the bikers faced the possibility of physical confrontation. Each party felt fear, yet courage emerged in their different ways. The little girl's courage was in seeking help, running towards strangers despite fear of the unknown. The biker's courage was in intervening, standing up to protect someone else when the situation could have easily turned against them. This duality teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the conscious choice to prioritize what is right, even when fear is present. Courage is often contagious. One act of bravery can spark others to act. The biker's intervention sent a silent message to bystanders, the community, and even the child herself, that fear does not have to dominate, that standing up for others is possible, and that bravery is within reach for anyone willing to act. Their choice turned a moment of terror into a moment of protection, transforming fear into hope. It is in these decisive moments that the human spirit shines brightest, reminding us that courage, even small, can have life-changing consequences. Furthermore, this story highlights the moral courage embedded in everyday people. The bikers were not superheroes. They were individuals faced with a choice. They could have walked away, avoided conflict, or waited for someone else to intervene. Instead, they acted because they recognized that doing nothing would allow fear and harm to prevail. This is the essence of courage, not knowing the outcome, yet moving forward anyway because compassion and justice demand it. Finally, courage vs. fear is a lesson for all of us. Life constantly presents situations where fear tempts us to remain passive, but the choice to act, especially for those who cannot defend themselves, is what defines humanity. The biker's bravery transformed a moment of terror into safety, hope, and protection, proving that courage is not a rare gift but a conscious decision we can all make, even in the face of fear. Kindness has a remarkable way of spreading, often far beyond the initial act. It's like a pebble dropped into a still pond. The impact starts small but quickly creates waves that touch lives we may never see. In the story of the little girl running to the bikers, their immediate act of protection was not just a moment of bravery. It was the beginning of a ripple effect that would extend far beyond that street. Their choice to intervene sparked hope, restored trust, and left an impression on everyone who witnessed the courage and compassion displayed that day. One of the most powerful aspects of kindness is its ability to inspire others. The little girl, trembling yet determined, learned a profound lesson about humanity, that even strangers can act selflessly, and that there is goodness in the world worth believing in. Her mother experienced firsthand that protection and justice are possible when people are willing to step in. The biker's actions also likely influenced bystanders, neighbors, and even passers-by who witnessed the intervention. Moments like these remind us that one person, or a small group, can spark courage, empathy, and compassion in an entire community. Kindness also has a way of reinforcing moral values. The biker's intervention communicated a clear message: violence and injustice will not go unchallenged. It set a standard for others, showing that defending the vulnerable and standing up for what is right is not optional. It is a responsibility we share as human beings. These actions create an invisible chain of influence, shaping behavior and attitudes long after the event has passed. A single act of bravery can encourage others to intervene in situations of injustice, to help those in need, and to embrace a sense of social responsibility that strengthens communities. Furthermore, the ripple effect of kindness extends beyond immediate participants. The story itself can inspire countless others when shared, through conversations, media, or storytelling. People who hear about the biker's bravery may find themselves motivated to act courageously in their own lives, whether it's protecting someone in danger, standing up to injustice, or simply showing compassion to those who are struggling. The influence of such acts is exponential, reaching far beyond the moment it occurs. Finally, acts of kindness remind us of the interconnectedness of humanity. One choice, one intervention, one moment of courage can alter the trajectory of a life. The biker's decision to help the little girl and her mother demonstrates that kindness is never wasted. Even small gestures can resonate, transform, and inspire, creating waves that extend well beyond what we can see, reminding us all that when we act with compassion, we contribute to a larger legacy of hope and goodness in the world. At the heart of this story lies a profound lesson about what it truly means to be human. The actions of the bikers, inspired by the desperate cry of a little girl, reveal that humanity is not measured by wealth, status, or appearance. It is measured by empathy, courage, and the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. In a world that can often feel divided, cruel, or indifferent, such acts remind us that compassion is not just a virtue, but a guiding principle that defines the very essence of society. One of the most striking lessons is that humanity thrives in action, not words. It is not enough to feel sympathy or pity. What matters is how we respond to the suffering of others. The bikers did not hesitate or debate. They acted decisively to stop harm and restore safety. This teaches us that our humanity is best expressed when we transform empathy into action, turning moral awareness into tangible protection and care for those in need. True humanity is shown not by idle concern, but by courageous intervention in the face of injustice. Another lesson is the universality of moral responsibility. Every individual has the capacity, and arguably the duty, to respond when they witness wrongdoing or suffering. The biker's intervention illustrates that no one is too ordinary to make a difference. Even strangers, from seemingly unrelated walks of life, can rise to extraordinary heights when guided by conscience. Humanity is not reserved for a select few. It is a shared quality that emerges whenever individuals choose to stand up for justice, kindness, and the vulnerable. This story also reminds us of the ripple effect of our choices. Acts of humanity are contagious. They inspire others to act with courage and compassion, creating a network of goodwill that strengthens the moral fabric of a community. The bikers' bravery not only protected the mother and child, but also set an example for everyone who witnessed the event. It showed that when people act selflessly, they empower others to believe in the inherent goodness of humanity and motivate them to carry forward that spirit in their own lives. Finally, the story underscores the transformative power of empathy. When we place ourselves in the position of others, imagining their fear, pain, and vulnerability, we awaken a profound sense of responsibility and connection. The bikers responded because they recognized the humanity in both the mother and the child. Their actions illustrate a timeless truth. Humanity is expressed through empathy, courage, and the unwavering commitment to protect and uplift one another, even in the smallest or most unexpected ways. In the end, the story of the little girl and the bikers teaches us that the measure of our world is not in what we possess, but in how we respond to the suffering of others, how we act with courage, and how we uphold the dignity and safety of those around us. Humanity is alive whenever we choose to intervene, to care, and to act with compassion. That day, on a quiet street, a little girl's cry became a call to action, not just for the bikers, but for all of us. It reminded us that courage is found in the unlikeliest of places, that heroes can emerge from the most unexpected corners of our world, and that even the smallest voice can ignite monumental change. Their actions were more than protection. They were a lesson in humanity, empathy, and moral responsibility. We learned that innocence can awaken courage, that community thrives when we act for others, and that kindness creates ripples far beyond the moment it occurs. Most importantly, we were reminded that being human means standing up for one another, even when it's difficult, even when fear is present, and even when no one is watching. So, let this story stay with us, not just as a tale of bravery, but as a blueprint for how we can live every day. In the face of injustice, we can act. In moments of fear, we can show courage. When someone cries out for help, we can answer. Because the measure of our world is not in our possessions, our status, or our comfort, but in the love, protection, and humanity we extend to one another. The next time you hear a cry for help, remember the little girl and the bikers. Remember that heroism doesn't wait for permission, and compassion doesn't wait for recognition. It begins with a choice to act, to care, and to make a difference. And in that choice, we become the heroes of someone's story.